With the discoveries of glycine and phosphine on Venus, our wonder and curiosity at our closest planetary neighbor has been significantly increased. We are now very excited for what may actually be happening on Venus. We don't really know yet what is going to happen. There is definitely a significant amount of speculation, but speculation is a good thing, and that is what we are going to be doing in this video. We will be discussing what potential life may look like, whether it is small microbial life or large umbrella-like life. Life on other planets has always been a very forefront topic in theoretical science and most of all science fiction. Humans tend to display these extraterrestrials as having human-like appendages, human-like everything to be completely honest. They have eyes, arms, mouths, noses, brains, feet. All of these are evolutionary indicators of terrestrial life. This Hollywood assumption is at the very best pseudoscientific in the way that it considers forms of life that evolved separate of each other as physically and genetically similar. We must remember how evolution works before we make such Earth-biased assumptions. Evolution by natural selection exemplifies survival of the fittest, especially in terms of environmental suitability. This basically means the organism with the genes best suited for the environment in which it resides will be most likely to survive, reproduce, and continue its genetic heritage. If you have an environment suitable for life on a planet completely different from the terrestrial savannas and steppes, then the planet you view will likely contain some seriously different life with completely foreign physical and emotional traits. Anyways, now that we have that aside, let's look from the smallest to the largest what possible life may look like on Venus. First off, we will start with the more likely of the already unlikely two, microbes. When it comes to microbes, distinct physical features aren't as important or even noticeable as with larger creatures. Reasoned assumptions would generally consider microbial life as arguably the only possible life form to exist on planet Venus. So the only possible way in which life would exist on Venus, only through microbial life. These microbes will undoubtedly be fundamentally different from the microbes on Earth. Still though, they will be similar to extremophiles like on Earth. Extremophiles on Earth are similar to what we presume may be extraterrestrial Venusian life. Conditions in the upper atmosphere of Venus are comparable to the conditions of life on the savannas and steppes of Earth, but still the composition of Venus's atmosphere is significantly different from the composition of our atmosphere. Venus has 96.5% carbon dioxide. This is significantly more than Earth's life, than Earth's carbon dioxide content. It's 0.04116% on Earth, 96.5% on Venus. So it is likely that these creatures will be intaking carbon dioxide, at least in some manner, but we cannot confirm either of that, of course, because we don't have any evidence. Additionally, certain environmental traits and features may result in some unusual traits and features on this microbial life that we will discuss. The microbial life would likely exist just fine, as they are lifted by the 186 mile per hour, or for the scientists, 85 meters per second, winds occurring consistently in Venus's upper atmosphere. This constant wind will allow them to remain suspended within the air, within the atmosphere, within these upper regions of the atmosphere for long periods of time, making life relatively suitable. Still, microbial life on another planet is extremely interesting, but in popular culture, it compares in no way to the possibility of large macro extraterrestrial life on another planet. First, though, let's be clear. It is extremely unlikely, I'm saying this compared to the size of the universe, that large extraterrestrial life exists on Venus, and even less so that intelligent, even on a chipmunk level, intelligent life exists on Venus. Based on the pure wonder and curiosity we maintain when thinking of extraterrestrial existence, we will examine what potential macro extraterrestrial life may look like in the upper atmosphere of our planetary neighbor. For YouTube, one picture will easily represent what could exist on Venus, but if you were watching the podcast, I had to explain it a little bit more than I'm going to explain it on here. You should see a picture right above on the right that should exemplify what a Venusian large macro extraterrestrial may look like. Now you see the umbrella shape that's kind of occurring there. That is because you want to keep it suspended in the air, and I'll discuss this in a second. Large extraterrestrial life on Venus must be suitable for the environment in which it resides. In terms of an upper atmosphere, it is likely that these larger organisms will need to be somewhat floating, as the wind may not be strong enough to keep them aloft. And of course, they have to deal with gravity too. And the only way to beat gravity without equal or stronger and opposite thrust would be with air resistance. First, for context, this assumption is based on my own speculation, as many tend to point to hydrogen balloon-like structures occurring within the large extraterrestrial, that may allow it to be kind of float like an air balloon, that would allow it to be kind of like an air balloon, to almost resemble one in a way, just look a little bit more lifelike. When I think of large life on Venus, I think of an umbrella-like creature that works similar to a parachute. But I want to discuss something that I personally call the umbrella effect. So think of a really cold October day, like a 39-degree October day. It's rainy, and you have your umbrella out. It's also very windy that day, and the thing about Venus is that there's a lot of convectionary winds occurring in the upper atmosphere, and they're very strong winds too. Just imagine that umbrella again. The umbrella, you are holding onto it, but not enough, and a 30-mile-per-hour wind gust hits you. But it's kind of like this, you know what I mean? So it kind of lifts the umbrella, and chances are, if that wind is maintained for a relatively long amount of time, it is very probable that you will not get that umbrella back. So I like to consider it similar to like an umbrella. They just kind of remain up there and just live off the convection, basically. The ultra-fast wind speeds in the upper atmosphere will undoubtedly keep these organisms alive if this is actually what they look like. So many will point to the hydrogen balloons as kind of keeping the extraterrestrial higher up in the atmosphere. But I don't really see that as being necessary. I see the umbrella effect working completely fine in of itself. So I don't think that there's any reason to even use hydrogen balloons, to even consider hydrogen balloons. I mean, we can consider them, but they're not necessary. When it comes to what large organisms may eat, that's a little bit more difficult. They may be able to feed off microbial life in the same way that a whale feeds off plankton. So imagine a whale swimming in the ocean, and just it has its mouth wide open, and is just kind of digesting, eating and digesting a bunch of plankton at once. You can see them all just kind of floating into the whale's mouth. I mean, we can say digestion, but this is just assuming that digestion actually occurs on Venus. Again, we don't really know. Now, on the other hand, they could still eat. They could still maintain energy without needing to eat microorganisms or anything. It's actually possible that they could just ingest carbon dioxide the same way I speculated that the microbial life could do. So it would just be kind of similar to photosynthesis on Earth, except there would be no sunlight. Now that may be a problem, but it could be completely different. We just don't know yet. Let's just be honest. Either way, with some obvious ramifications, anything is possible when it comes to what life on Venus may actually look like. Still, the probable discoveries of both glycine and phosphine may indicate biological processes occurring on the most improbable of planet for life. For the moment, we must remain scientifically skeptical, but I am personally optimistic that we are onto something. Either way, let's allow the scientific process to take its course, and if we come to a reality in which there is no other fundamental explanation or natural explanation for this abundance of phosphine and glycine, then we can begin to consider life as a fundamentally viable option, or a fundamentally viable event that is occurring on Venus. For now, though, we must attempt to figure out what other natural processes may cause such an abundance of these biomolecules. Remain skeptical, that's all I can say. Thank you all for listening, and as always, have a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, and a good night. Take care and stay curious.